Hello and welcome to City Skylines. You're looking at the Blackwoods map on PS4 Console Edition. The objective of this video is to show you how I built what you see before you right now, in the hopes that this can serve as a sort of starter guide, maybe specific to this map, but also perhaps generalizable across not just the PS4 Console Edition, but the PS5 Remastered Edition, and even perhaps some lightly or unmodded PC builds. I'm going to cover the basics of road layout, including grids and non-traditional road design, industrial space planning and residential zoning, how to add commercial in spots that make sense, and generally how to sort land uses throughout the city, including essential city services such as fire protection, crime prevention, parks and leisure, transit, death care and healthcare, and of course education. We'll dip lightly into some of the industry's DLC, and in general we're going to keep things fairly simple and low to the ground in the hopes that if this is your first time playing City Skylines, you'll learn a lot, and if you're like me and you just booted up the first map available, this is the place to be. I do want to talk a little bit about what this video was originally intended as versus maybe what it is now. I actually recorded this footage months ago from when this will be released, but due to a number of personal and medical and otherwise boring issues, the edits took forever. Since then, not only has City Skylines Remastered come out on PS5, which I think from a beginner's perspective, the most significant change is 9 tiles to 25 tiles. That really is a game-changing ability. But even more excitingly, City Skylines 2 has been announced. So originally, I wanted to go through every single map in City Skylines on my PS4 and show you how to get started. I didn't expect it to be quite as complicated a project as this video turned out to be, and certainly the timing of both the remaster and the proper sequel really draw into question whether or not this is a worthwhile project. If you think that you would like to see beginner's guides for every map in the base PS4 console edition of the game, let me know, and I will try to get better at turning these around more quickly. Otherwise, I may just go back to my Rosalind build series, where I have a couple of other ideas that it might be nice to play around with before the original City Skylines release rides off into the sunset. For now, I want to just get into this build right here on Blackwoods, and if you're new to City Skylines, welcome. I'm going to go through all sorts of troubleshooting, budget problems, some of the most common issues you see, as well as like how to get the grid to look how you want it to, how to connect up these pieces of the grid with the road snap twos and all the other difficult things. So, thanks for being here. Let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to City Skylines, PlayStation 4 Console Edition. Plan for today is hopefully this will be the first in what could be a very long series of videos. We'll find out. Basically, I want to go through every single map in the console edition of the game, and I want to figure out how do we get a city off the ground on every single one of these maps. This is a type of video I've been looking for a long time. Every time I'm getting ready to start a new city, I want to know everything I can about the map beforehand and sort of get a sense of how you can visualize a city in that area. So you can see here, with all the different expansions, there are quite a few maps in the game now. So I'm not going to be developing an entire city in every single one of these. That's not the plan. The plan is to go through and at least get off the ground, establish a base to show you it's possible on that map, how it's possible on that map, and then to give you plenty of room after that to make the city your own. So we're going to start with one of one here, Blackwoods map. This is in the base game, Vanilla Console Edition. So let's take a look at the information we do have here right now. We can see we've got oil,
we've got ore, we've got some fertile land, and we've got some forests. There's quite a bit of water. Outside connections, it has everything: road, rail, water, and air. The base theme is boreal and 69% suitable area for building, which is, as they say, nice. I normally like to play with dynamic weather in the day-night cycle on. I'll try to be conscious here of the fact that, it's harder to see stuff at dark. And then, of course, I'm not going to turn any of these on. I'm going to leave disaster frequency off. These are personal decisions you can make. Of course, the cheats are kind of defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do in the series. Although, if you really do just want to play around with a map, a lot of the times I'll go into a map before I'm ready to build and do a cheats mode with all milestones, unlimited money, unlimited oil and ore, and unlimited soil, and then just, really figure out what's possible on the map instead of having to build my way into it. But okay, here we go. I'm going to run you through the steps that I take when I first drop into any brand new map that I'm going to build a city in. And sometimes I only get to this phase. Sometimes I get to a map and I'm like, well, I don't really know if I want to build a city in this. Sometimes it's just not what you're looking for. The reason that I'm making these videos is because really the only way to tell if a map is a good fit for you right now, I think, is to basically load it up. Okay, here we are. First thing I'm going to do, very first thing, is pause the game. Always pause the game when you start out. That's not important at this exact second. It is very important as soon as I start laying down roads. Before I get into any infrastructure, though, the first thing I want to do is come in here and see what my info views can tell me. So there's a couple things, even with nothing built, that we can actually see in the info views. One of those is land value. So we can see all of the waterfront is already quite high value land. So we may want to take that into consideration in the build here and reserve that for really nice residential or commercial uses and keep industrial uses in the center of our peninsula here. The other, probably most important thing we can learn about right now is the terrain. And so you can see on the Blackwoods here, there's a little bit of wonkiness to the terrain. It's not perfectly flat. Kind of got a couple of ridges as you get closer to the coast in a couple of spots here. In general, it's sort of lower in the central part of this. And we can kind of see there's a really natural place where we might put a road to account for the fact that there's only so much we can do about this until we unlock the landscaping tools. We can take a look at our natural resources here. We can see we've got quite a bit of good farming land right here in the starting square, as well as quite a bit of timber that we might use for forestry purposes. So that's very cool. Right across this small bay here, there's quite a bit of oil, a lot more farming land. You can see there's some ore out on the further reaches, a lot more oil up there, more farming land. So there's a lot natural resources on this map. We can look at our wind strength. So this will give us a sense of where it would be effective to put wind turbines if we wanted to use those. And then we can also take a look at our fishing and just think about, okay, if we wanted to get into fishing at some point, we have, of course, a lot of salmon around the coast right there, plenty of shellfish in this bay, even a little anchovy over there, and then a lot of tuna as well. So pretty solid access to all four kinds of fish, not far from where we are. Just like 1 square away, really. Oh no, actually there is some anchovy right here. So we do have all four kinds of fish basically right here, which is very cool in the starting square. So the first thing I'm always going to do is going to come in here. I'm going to put down a $40 road. I'm going to get $30 back. I've spent $10 and I've opened up all of these other, a lot of the vanilla roads here. So, this also includes a lot of new roads in the most recent updates. So we got the wide sidewalks, we got a median, just our base 2-lane road, 2-lane one-way, 2-lane one with wide sidewalks, and our dirt road. So we got 6 different kinds of 2-lane roads there, or small roads, I guess I should say 2U roads. We've got one 4-lane road, we've got 6-lane one-way, 6-lane with a median, and then just a basic 6-lane. So a couple of options there. We've got a basic small roundabout, some bridges and piers, and that's about it. All right, so I did my $40 road delete. Basically, what I'm going to be trying to do in every single iteration of these videos is show you how to build what I've heard some people call a battery. At its most simple form, it would be a sort of like we'd have a central road down the middle here. On the right side would be a grid of residential, and on the left side would be a grid of industrial, and we would just sort of grow as needed and continue to develop all of our uses with commercial running right down the middle. Conflict Nerd has a great video on this if you're curious about how to use it. I sort of take the basis of that and then I look and I say, okay, what is the terrain going to let me get away with here? Because it's actually going to look good to do like a very basic grid when it's all sort of messy right here? Or do we want to think a little more about, okay, where can we lay our roads that make sense and is going to work well here? So that's what I'm going to be thinking about. So with that in mind, I'm going to start laying out the grid here. Oh, and I did want to turn music on, I guess. So I am going to build with dirt roads for now, because that is going to hopefully just keep the cost down. So I will start with a pretty basic grid here, and then I'll look to see kind of what I can do creatively with the spacing back through here. Oop. Let's see if we can get a nice 6 guy is going to be a little too... So maybe I'll just go with a classic 8x8 grid here for the sake of convenience. And then I'll leave us a little bit of extra room there. I'm going to try to keep things simpler than I normally do. I tend to get a little bit overly involved in my builds sometimes. It's, you know, has perks and benefits, of course. So I'm also going to try and maintain as much of the trees up here as I can, I think. It would be a really nice selling point of a neighborhood like this, so we'd want to try to keep as much of that as we can. And I'm just going to use a mix of straight and curved roads here. And then I want to come in on the other side here. And I'm just going to bring that up like that. And I'll do another parallel road right there. And I'll go ahead and curve this in. There we go. We get a nice parallel couplet forming right there. That's going to be a key piece of the community. The thing to remember about road layout is that, you know, like, I might not want these here because I might want to give this room to breathe, right? And that adds, you know, a substantial amount more of zonable area here as opposed to having that block broken in half like that. The trade-off is obviously the access you'll have and sort of the ability to move within the neighborhood. Take a look. Maybe we can come out one more over here. Go ahead and do that, and I think before I get too much further along here, I want to go ahead and put our power plant in. I just put down the coal power plant. You can see that costs 19K, which is a lot more than a wind turbine, but it produces a lot more. 120 versus 0 to 8, obviously. It's not reliant on the wind. This can form a really nice sort of central piece of any industrial area, which is what we'll sort of have over here. So we've got a very basic starter grid here. We also then need to think about water. So we have two options for that right now. One is the water pumping station. We do have access to a lot of water, so this might be the play. The water tower is nearly identical. It just costs 1,000 more for less capacity, but the advantage is, one, you don't need a fresh water source nearby, and two, it just looks really cool. I love the water tower. But I'll go ahead and for now we'll do one of these guys out here. We'll do the pumping station out at the end of this road. And then we'll go ahead and have that be a water main down through there. And of course we'll bring that out to here. And then I think we want to look at a spot like right here. Basically as close to under the road as I can get it is always what I'm going to go with. You know, it doesn't have to be perfectly under the road. You definitely want it close to the road for access for repairs. But sort of slightly offset from the road is often easier to repair because you might not even need to actually tear the road up then. You can just tear up the sidewalk. You can still get, you know, pipes fixed without necessarily impeding traffic. I'm going to go... Actually, I'm going to take that out for now. So I think we've got basically everywhere I want a zone covered with as few pipes as possible. And then we'll need to think as well about sewage. So we've got a couple of options. If you're playing the most basic base version of the game, this might be the only one you have, the water drain pipe. It is going to just dump sewage. Here on this map, if I was going to use this, I think I would want to put it over here because we can see where the water current is going. There's not a lot of current in this bay, so I don't want this to just fill up with sewage. So here we at least would see it start to drain down into those other rivers down there. So the water drain pipe, that's what you'll have if you have the base game. You can work your way up to the water treatment plant. If you have the Green Cities DLC, you can use the Eco Water Outlet. So this is basically just the same sewage pipe, but it's not quite as nasty in terms of pollution. And you can see the drain capacity is half, so it's sort of a trade-off. I think one of the reasons the Sunset Harbor DLC is one of the most must-haves is because of these inland water treatment plants. You can see they come in a regular and an eco version. So the key difference between the inland water treatment plant and the eco inland water treatment plant, you can see there's a couple of key statistics. So the inland water treatment plant, pollution 100, electricity 240 kilowatts, and drain capacity 120. So it's polluting a lot. It's using not a lot of electricity, and it's doing good drain capacity. The Eco Inland Water Treatment Plant, like less than half the pollution, but double the electricity for only half the drain capacity. So the trade-off with all of these is that you're going to need more budget and more space to use the Eco versions. That will diffuse the pollution, but I tend to always just use this inland water treatment plant. So you can kind of see here, yes, it's got a big area of effect, but you can put it like right in your industrial area, and it's a non-issue. So this isn't bad, but it will make the whole entrance to the city a bit gross, so I may just stick it back here. We'll just hook this up really quick. You don't have to do this, but I always like to just put a little redundancy in there. In the event that one of those pipes were to have an issue, we of course wouldn't want to lose water treatment. Okay, so now that I've got a basic road layout, power infrastructure, and sewage, before I unpause anything, I want to come in here and take the budget down for everything. So when I'm starting a game, this is one of the biggest things you can do to save yourself a headache, because money can be so fickle at the start of the game. So if I take the budget down on everything, we're going to be spending the minimum possible on all the infrastructure we're building, and that's going to be really key. So now I want to come in here and look at where we can zone. So I'm going to make all of this housing. We'll make this right here housing. I want to do commercial along this couplet right here. I'm not going to zone in the middle of it though. Do more commercial out here. And then we'll do industrial back through here. I'll hold off on that. But just so you can see the basic principle here is quite obvious, right? In fact, let me just back all this off for now. There we go. Okay, I think I'm ready to unpause the game. Before I do that, let me just run, because we can see on our RCI meter that residential demand is our first demand. So we'll go ahead and run a power line right here. in the hopes that when one of these houses zones in, it'll pick up the power there. We'll go from there. Okay, so I'm going to unpause the game and we'll see what happens. So I've pre-built out a little bit of extras, a couple of blocks over here, because I know that residential is always going to take up way more space than commercial or industrial in the early game. You shouldn't be having any power problems. Okay, that looks like that hooked up. Oh, we do need to run this line the rest of the way out here, of course, so that we have power at this guy. There we go. Now everybody will have water. Okay, we've got our first houses coming in here. Alright, so I'm going to see, I'm cognizant here of the fact that I still have residential demand. I'm going to go ahead and put some more houses in right there. Won't be the full 4 deep, so I've got a little bit of extra room there in case the landscaping gets wonky at all. But then I will go 4 deep here. A big part of the fun of the game is playing around with different lot sizes, and you get a lot of different kinds of neighborhoods because of that. So those neighborhoods, all these houses will be pretty large. Go ahead and look at our budget. Look at income and expenses. We're just starting to see tax revenue start to trickle in here. Very first bit of residential. And we can see expenses. We've got about $100 on roads, about $300 on power and water separately. So we're about 730 is our total expenses right now. Hopefully our tax base will start to cover that very quickly. So I can see our first commercial thing is coming in here. I'm going to go ahead and historicize that, as well as any houses that I like back through here. If I like the shape and sort of character a neighborhood is taking on with the initial assets that come down, I'll do this because it'll preserve this character then. Whereas if you let everything upgrade, eventually it all might look super sleek and super modern, and it's kind of just up to you if that's the look you want for their neighborhood or not. I tend to love the level 1 and 2 houses. Now I always will historicize, especially the light blue, the low density commercial zoning, because these will turn into 5 or 6 story buildings if you let them, which I think just looks ridiculous next to like 1 and 2 story houses. I mean, even like this thing right here, I'm not crazy about, especially because it's popped up 3 times through this neighborhood. So I might even say, okay, try again. You know, it's all up to you to determine what the look of the actual neighborhood would be. You really have the power. Alright, I'll go ahead and speed the game up. And we'll see really kind of 2 things I'm waiting for right now. One is what happens with the RCI meter, and 2 is for that budget to turn from red to green. The big thing I'm waiting for right now is for the budget to turn from red to green, because we can see that red number is getting smaller and smaller. That means our tax base is growing. We can see we've got the industrial demand starting to pop in now. There's commercial demand. You see people are starting to move in here. That's very exciting. So I may want to go ahead and just do this with this couplet here. Oh, there we go. We're in the green. Plus $16, plus $29. Let's see what our income expense balance looks like. So it's big boom in level 1 residential tax income, commercial tax income, industrial tax income. So this is the foundation of everything right here, is getting that tax revenue in the green over the expenses on roads, water, and power. That's basically level 1 of the game right there. And it's perfect timing because we're seeing the sunset, which is really cool. So now we also know that that is west. So looking towards this freeway interchange from the starter square is west on this map. I think that'll be consistent across multiple other people's playthroughs. I'm not 100% certain, so don't quote me on that. But if that is consistently west, that's very important to know. And that's why I always play with the day-night cycle on, in part, is because knowing where the real-world cardinal directions are in your city will help you make a more realistic city. Now we know the sun will rise over there. That's really cool because that means we can think about laying out the city in a way that the sunrise is available to everyone. Cities, settlements, human establishments, all kind, whatever terminology. Oop, did we just get a milestone? Oh, huge. Okay, so Little Hamlet. We got the Little Hamlet milestone. This unlocks a couple of big things, taxes and loans. So now we have the ability to set tax rates for different types of zoning. We can also take out a loan, which can be really helpful at this stage of the game. And then we have 3 essential city services that are introduced with 5 assets. So garbage is the first one. You'll get the landfill site in the base game. I also have the recycling center. The healthcare services, which will unlock with the medical clinic right now, and then education and campus areas. And you can see I have 2 elementary schools, the elementary school and the community school. So we'll take a look at all of these right now. So I think it's wise when you come out of the milestone game to pause the screen and come take a look at your options here. So if you have the base game, you'll have the landfill. You can see it's fine. The one thing that you need to remember about the landfill is that you have to empty it completely to move it. So if you put this down somewhere, it is going to be there, making this massive ring of ground pollution until you have some other way to empty it out and do something else. So that's why green cities to me is a must-have for the sake of this recycling center. So I'll go ahead and I'll do both for the sake of showing you kind of the ramifications here. But just know that when I am playing this game, I am always using the recycling center. Any opportunity I get. So we'll do that there. And then we'll just put this here and you'll see what happens with it. So because we have new services, that means we need to come into our budget. And I'm going to take everything down as low as I possibly can at this stage of the game. But we're going to see what the city's needs actually are, and we'll go from there. So now that I have garbage laid down, I'll go ahead and restart the game. We'll see we've got 4 garbage trucks there, 4 garbage trucks there, and we can come in and look at our info view. So we've got plenty of storage. Landfill usage, obviously we're at 0%. We have 8 million units of capacity. The second little purple box there is what our recycling center is doing. So we're producing 8,000 a week. We have processing for 6,000. That's fine. We have the landfill for overflow. But if I wanted to only have a recycling center because I was trying to conserve on land pollution, I would just need to go back in and update the garbage budget here. And then if we come back in here, we can see, boom, now we're in the yellow because our capacity exceeds our production. So I'll even, get a little creative with it in roleplay, and I'll say, keep the budget down during the day, and then we'll bump the budget up at night, because that's sort of how garbage works in a lot of cities. So I can see we've got residential demand. We've got about 120, 100 and almost 30 open jobs in a pretty small city, but unemployment's pretty high. We are seeing residential demand as the primary demand right now. So I'll go ahead and look for a couple of spots out here where we can continue to zone in. And maybe I want to give these people a little bit of extra room. These look like these would be really nice lots out here. And we can come through and detail them later and make them look even fancier. And then I'll go ahead and take a look at what's our terrain doing here. And can we continue to extend the grid over? And it looks like we can. At least to here, right? Yeah, I'd say that's about the spot. Just do a nice curved road into there. And you can kind of see how this is all taking shape, right? And then we'll go ahead and make sure we've got water under here. So you can see all I need to do is bring that out. And now if I do this one a little bit too, we've got all of this covered. And if we bring this out to here, we just need to bring another stem down like that. Okay. You can see we're doing fine on water consumption and sewage draining capacity. Even with that budget turned all the way down, we're only at a third of our capacity, and that's why I turned the budget all the way down, because you have so much unnecessary overhead. Go ahead and speed up time here a little bit. And because the city budget is in the green, I'm just going to let it roll. But I'll go ahead and zone in these blocks right here, since we have so much residential demand. I'll go ahead and make sure all of my commercial businesses are historicized. I love them with the low profile there. Info use is your best friend in the early game here. So I just said water capacity is fine. Our power capacity, we're sort of right in the line. So what we want to do about that then is come in here, and especially we want to turn the nighttime budget up. Obviously, you're going to use more electricity at night. We can already see that was starting to have some problems out there, just because that is these houses are the furthest away from the coal plant that's generating electricity, so they're going to have the most problem. It also means our water pump is really high risk for power outages if our consumption exceeds our production. So you really want to keep an eye on that early. Try to keep a bird's eye view on the city. If you see those little power icons popping up, it's really important to nip that in the bud. You can see, so as residential demand is being met, we now have commercial demand starting to be filled with the zoning we've already done. And I'll go ahead and do another block out here. And you can see industrial is spiking up again, so we'll go ahead and just do another block of that. Now this is not how I normally like to do industrial these days. What I really like to do is set up a yard, so I'll have like a big encased block, and then I'll do a sort of dirt driveway through it, and that'll be how I handle the industrial demand. That's a little more intermediate level than what I'm trying to show you today. So for the sake of simplicity, we're doing it the easy way with just simple blocks here. I'll go ahead and store size stuff as it comes in, if I like the look of it at least. Oh, there we go. Okay, Worthy Village, population of 650. So this unlocks a couple of big things. One is new areas, so we can get a new squares in the identical size of our starter square. We now have districts and policies in the second loan. The second loan is actually the good one, I think. In district specializations and services policies, so a lot of paperwork kind of stuff. New services, emergency services, the police department, and unique buildings. So this is fire, police, and some really cool touristy stuff. Obviously, we've got a couple industrial specializations as well now. Forestry and agriculture. Self-sufficient buildings, organic and local produce, so that's a commercial specialization, as well as a residential specialization. New policies about power usage and water usage. These are basically ways that if you are in the sort of yellow on your water or power, you can get yourself out of a jam if the budget is in a crisis. Hopefully, if you play the way I play, you'll never find yourself in that kind of crisis. We're going to slow down time again, and we got to look at fire is the first thing I want to look at right now. So we're going to need a fire station in a really convenient spot. I think this is an ideal spot right here. Oop, okay. Hold on, let me come into budget. The other thing I want to do real quick, because we got new services, right? We want to take the budget down. So for police and fire, hopefully that'll do what we needed to do for power. We're still kind of low. So you can see, obviously, as the city grows, you're going to need more power. The transition from day to night is always going to be the dodgiest time for it. But it's just a little bit of fine-tuning here and there to get you through it. Don't be afraid to go over on power. At this stage of the game, you're going to need to grow into it anyway, so you may as well accept that. Okay, and then, all right, so we can see here, our fire hazard 78%. This has got a much smaller green area now that I turned the budget down, right? But we'll go ahead and put that there. That's $12,000. I want to come in here and take a look at this. So I like to go with the large fire engine. This is one of the vehicle packs, and it's only got 2 fire engines. So that might be enough for a town this size for now. But starting with the budget that low means that I can up the budget on this one fire station. I don't need to plop down another fire station as soon as I start to wonder if I'm having problems with fire coverage. Now we'll come in here and look at police station. So again, we'll just put that right there. Kind of starting to see like a little municipal service hub right there, which we like. Speaking of which, we could also go ahead and put our medical center right here. Although I might like it better over here, to be honest with you. There we go. And we'll go ahead and do the large ambulance on this. I'm going to make sure we just have the police car on that. Alright, so that's healthcare, fire, and police. And we have, obviously, a bunch of landmarks in here. I'm probably not going to get into this stuff this playthrough. This is all stuff you can unlock doing different things. Obviously, some of the levels are still locked behind milestones here. These are the kinds of signature pieces you'll want to build entire neighborhoods around. I've built entire neighborhoods around this city hall multiple times. You can do really cool stuff with this theater. This hypermarket is a Walmart, so it's not quite as exciting in terms of that. The new Content Creator Pack Seaside Resort stuff is open from the very early game. I actually really like these for just like small town stuff like this. Like that doesn't look out of place here at all. And it gives us like an interesting little like historic building downtown. So we're not gonna upgrade any roads. We don't need to yet, but we will go ahead and continue that couplet out there. And then I think I probably want to look at upgrading some roads now. The budget seems to be in fine shape. Let's go ahead and double check it real quick. So look at our income and expenses here. See, obviously residential tax is going to be the bulk of what you're looking at. Commercial will be okay. Industrial can be big as well. It just depends on how you lay stuff out. In terms of expenses, roads are pretty minor right now. Biggest one is police and fire. And that's another reason I turned the budget down on everything. Is just starting from the lowest budget you can on all these services means you have nothing to do but grow. You're gonna need these services. You know, trying to come in and cut the budget after the fact is always going to be a losing battle, I think. That is why I prioritize dropping the budget on everything down as low as possible from the outset. We've got a nice little main street forming there, which brings me to districts. So districts are very useful tools. I'm going to create, I think, 2 right here out of the gate. 3. Sorry, 3 is what I meant to say. And these are basically going to be, right now, the different zoning we have. Oops. So we have Evergreen Heights, which really is just like... So that's basically all residential zoning. Beach Hills, this is actually what I'll call Main Street. And I'll also just, to make it apparent, call this the Main Street Commercial Strip. This is going to be the basis of basically every town for me, is this couplet that extends our highway exit into a major commercial strip. And then over here, I'm going to put these as industrial yards. Because now we have options. If we wanted to come in here and look at policies, we could see power usage, water usage, smoke detector. There's a lot we can do in here, just not yet. I am going to go ahead and do policies from here. So this will apply to policies citywide. Then I want to look at upgrading roads, I think is the next obvious step here. So I'm going to do that. I'll go ahead and use these wide sidewalk roads through some parts of the neighborhood here. Make it feel a little more homey and get that parking off the street in some of these spots. Oop, and then I will run out of money, and that'll be that. So we'll go ahead and speed up the game. Budget's in the green, everything's looking good. We'll go ahead and check our info views. Electricity's looking fine, water's looking fine, crime is fine. Fire, you know, we could up the budget on this, and that would increase land value and things like that. Ah, interesting. We're having worker shortages. So unemployment is 1%. We just have a lot more jobs than we have people right now. So what I'll do in a situation like this, frankly, is look for the industrial spots I want to D-zone. So like all of these that are like nearly identical, I'll just get rid of those for now. And I'll also think in terms of like, okay, if we're going to put a farm out here on this fertile soil, it would be great to back some industrial uses away from that, right? And we'll just do this until we start to see a little bit of balance. So jobs available, still way higher than our population. And we've got to be considered as well, like a quarter of the population is children. So that's all people that probably aren't working yet. And I do want to be very cognizant of what our income expenses balance is looking right now, because we are destroying the industrial tax base at a very precarious moment for the budget. Why don't we just do this? Continue to try to bring some residential through here. Let's go ahead and take a look at our terrain view out here. So we could kind of come and mirror that, but not enough money, right? So at this stage, we got to get thoughtful, right? Where are we going to put more housing, even if it's not going to be there forever? Need some of that commercial demand through here, I think. Okay, balancing the budget out again. Very nice. We're riding a little bit of a thin line here. I guess we'll speed up again now that we're in the green. I want to try to upgrade the rest of these downtown streets, but I need to be mindful of the fact that we could lose our overhead if we're not careful. So I'm going to go ahead and take this opportunity to be a little more creative in what I'm doing now. For right here, maybe we actually want to put a little road through here. Maybe we'll do a road right there. Oh, and we're in trouble. Okay, we're in trouble. What's going on? Okay, I think I might go ahead and delete this unique building for now, just because that it's a big bit of the budget, isn't it? I guess it was probably my fault for leaving it turned all the way up too. So maybe we'll bring that back in a minute. Okay, starting to see a little bit of equalization there. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in a couple more what I think will be big lots out here. So we could potentially see, I think it would make sense to see like this neighborhood back here continue to fill in with a similar grid pattern eventually. So I'm okay with doing this here. Again, right now this is sort of crisis budget management, unfortunately. Thought I was going to avoid this. Not as lucky as I'd hoped. Can look for some other spots over here where, okay, so like those would probably be houses there. This would be houses here. Come on, budget. Balance it out now. How close are we? Pretty close. Policies are kind of killing us, to be honest. Look at that. So that's $635 just on the smoke detector policy. I mean, it's a very compelling argument why you just don't play with them at all. If we look at our fire safety, 51. You know, okay, if we're at 50% right now, so even if we bump this up to 65, there's no way we'll be spending $600 on that, right? See if we can watch that take effect. And it's down to 44, which is pretty nice, okay? If we come in here, we're still only spending about 300. I don't see why we can't bump that up a little more now. 42, okay, we'll take it. Alright, so we're in the green. I'm going to go ahead and speed time up again. Fortunately, like I said at this physics game, there's not really a lot you can do while you're waiting for this. Normally I would say like, oh, just plant some trees, do some landscaping, but we don't even have that unlocked yet. Not until we hit 1,000, which should be soon, hopefully. So while we're waiting for that, I'll go ahead and upgrade some more roads. So I'll do everything within the grid here first. Alright, there we go. So now that residential grid is all upgraded roads. That'll be good for land values. Hopefully start to see. So there you can see that's that morning effect again, right? We're seeing a little bit of weirdness there. Their power consumption. Come in here again. We are like right on the line. So we can go ahead and bump that up a little more. Go ahead and upgrade some roads back through here too. This should help industrially a little bit, just in terms of truck traffic moving a little more quickly. So let's see what our next milestone is. 1,000, we're getting very close now. So while we're waiting for population to click over here, I think this is about all we're going to get done for this session. And I think this is a really good start. So let me talk to you a little bit about why I started the way I did here. So obviously I've made this sort of modified battery here. We have plenty of room to work back towards the freeway. If we wanted to unlock that right now, we absolutely could. It gives us a ton of great area contiguous with our square by land. Whereas, the other options here, if we wanted to come over from here, we'd have another highway connection, which would be great. But we would need to bridge across the water to get to our existing development. If you wanted to play a sort of twin cities merging across this bay, that would be a really good place to go. However, anywhere else that we go, if we go here, we only can get there by bridging from our current city. Same here. These will be massive, massive cul-de-sacs until you can unlock other highway connections in other directions here. So for my money, the smart play is this one that has your interchange in it, because then you can customize that interchange. Second best, and probably the second panel I might unlock after this one, would be over here. So you can set up another highway connection and start to expand on the other side of the bay. For now, I'll go ahead and take... I can't afford it. Never mind. Obviously, you'll need a lot of money for that. But for this specific area right here, I've tried to develop in a way that effectively is going to lead to like a really interesting focal point out here. So in terms of like real world layout, that's what I was talking about. If we create a focal point right out here, we know the sun is over that way. You'll be able to come and watch the sunrise, potentially anywhere along this coastline here. You'd have a great view of the sunset as well from this point, because you can see west a little ways. Whereas a lot of the rest of this, you're not going to see as much of the sun unless you start to go over to the other side of the rail bridge there. That is the other benefit of unlocking that square, is it gives us that rail access, which we don't get yet any other way. So I would absolutely go with that square first, just to notice that. But in general, I'm trying to let the terrain be my guide, right? So what I'm thinking is the main drag will go to this focal point right here. Meanwhile, we can have a road that sort of goes along the coast here. It won't be as efficient, but it'll be much prettier. We can continue to develop residential all through this wooded area right here, potentially even trying to leave space in between the houses for some of the natural forestry here to maintain itself. And then I would continue to develop industrial in this area over here, but I would probably switch at this point to two things. One would be a farm right here, because that's going to pollute way less. And then two would potentially be, obviously, some forestry out here. So that is probably where I would look to build industrial capacity, because those are much less polluting uses. And even though right now I might only be able to do the industrial specializations available in the base game, which are really great, eventually, when we do unlock industries at a population of 1,000 here, even having those laid out already and gridded and stuff will be, or at least a sense of where they're going to be, really most importantly. Having a sense of where those things will go is really powerful in terms of being prepared for that. So I would say, like I said, commercial main drag would come down to here. Here I would do some sort of really interesting... And this is kind of what you can do once you've got that budget in the green and you just need to kill time. This is totally the way to go. So like I said, I would probably extend residential like out through here. Maybe even kind of along Main Street strip there as well. And then I would want to do something really kind of special with this area of the coast. So that would probably take the form of like a really big, interesting road. And then a lot of like tourist uses, unique buildings, things like that. And then this right here could sort of be the area you have left to play with. So what that means is a couple of things, right? One, that could be more residential if that's what you need. It could be more industrial if that's what you need. It's in a spot, and this is really important, right? That it's in a spot that is going to be easily served with the rest of these industrial uses. But, you know, looking at this map, sort of doing the eye test, I'd say this might be enough industrial space for the first square of this city, these three pieces right here. So maybe you want to turn this into residential. Maybe you want to turn it into a big shopping center. Maybe you want to do a massive park or some other sort of unique building development or a university or a pedestrian zone. There's all kinds of options here. Similarly with the residential zoning and the coastal development, that's where you'll really have the room to be creative, I think, on this. In terms of not just like what your neighborhoods look like, do you want some more of these sort of big blocks that are gonna, you know, be a little more interesting to work with, but not as space efficient? Or do you just want to try to keep a densely packed grid wherever you can, right? And then in terms of, you know, actual urbanization here, I would say that like this area down here is where you could potentially have like a downtown. And keep in mind, all of this is very fluid, right? Based on how you want the city to look, what sort of road layout you might do. You know, of course, we want the terrain to be our guide. Oops. Right? So if we come in here and look at our terrain, you know, I think that kind of makes sense for a downtown area. We would have this road maybe coming in, maybe taking another curve around there and coming right up to there. So, you know, we have like, it'll have really good access to the major arterial road there. It'll be really nice with the residential here. And it'll be a good place for density because the views will be incredible, right? The other option would be you turn this into your downtown. And you let the, you know, eventually you could redevelop this area right here into high density using the same tightly packed grid we already have and keep low density out at the edges here so that then your, you know, sort of urban core could be up here closer to this part of the bay, right? There's all kinds of options. There it is. Okay, so this unlocks a lot. I think I'll play with a couple of these things and then we'll call it a day. But just to show you some of the other essential pieces here. So this unlocks park areas, industry areas, pedestrian areas, landscaping, event policies, and park policies. A couple of these are really big features. New services, leisure, industry areas, fishing industry, some unique buildings. And then a lot of new policies that can really shape the game for you. A lot of new roads and paths. We've got canals. We've got fences, my personal favorite piece of the game. And then all of these assets, a lot of them are parks, some of the industry's DLC stuff. I want to look at parks because we can immediately come in here and start boosting land value by dropping some of these down. There's some basic parks here. Park with trees, large playground. These are all going to be different sizes and shapes. And you can see they're going to do kind of the same range of entertainment value. The plazas are very basic. This is the most basic level of plaza, not the custom plazas and promenade stuff. These come with the base game, and they're fairly effective. And then the tennis courts and basketball courts, those are really nice too. These little props here, these are just kind of to flesh stuff out in detail. I think you will see a slight effect from them, but you can really only document it in a park area. Now, obviously, I've got content creator packs here, and then the park maintenance is really useful. We also can come in and say, okay, obviously we wanted this to be a park, right? So why don't we just make this a park? And it'll be called Hickory Gardens. And we could say, you know, put the parking lot in there. And now we can landscape, which is huge, 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 huge for me personally. Maybe the thing I spend the most time doing in this game is landscaping. So like right there, I want to create pedestrian cut-throughs for kind of basically all the different corners of the park here. Because that's where people are going to be coming from, is these intersections. So I'll do stuff like that. And now, if you're coming at this park from kind of any angle here, you have like a cut through to get to another one of these easy intersections. And just to show you the snap options here, these work for roads as well as paths, fences, all kinds of transit, things like that. So angle, let's go ahead and take these one at a time. Angle is obviously just going to be angle, right? So if we come straight, we do that, and then we come like this. Right now, you can see I can kind of go anywhere I want with it. If I turn angle back on, it gives me a readout on the angle, right? And it'll snap to that 90. If we do length, this is how we get those guidelines, right? So it's going to tell me when I'm at 10 there, 10 units across. Grid is going to try and actually stick it into the grid here, right? So like that is like up in the grid, whereas if I do this, now I don't get any snapping into the grid, right? Road guidelines, this is going to base it off of other nodes. So you can see it's picking up on those nodes right there, and I can bring it in at any sort of thing here, but you can see it wants to line up with those. So it kind of perfectly mirrors it. And then the final snap to here, which is height, elevation step. So this is just going to give you a lot more fine motor control. I always basically set this to the lowest because otherwise one tap is equivalent to 3 taps. So it's kind of just up to you what makes sense. And obviously you can use all these things in combination and in combination with straight, curved, and freeform. And that's how you really create complex and beautiful roads. Landscaping was the other big thing we unlocked. So this is going to give us a chance to come in and clean up the look in a couple of spots here. So anywhere that houses have popped in and it's looking a little rough like this, especially if we left space in between them intentionally, we want to go ahead and kind of flatten out these paths. And it wouldn't really make sense for these houses to have these big dips in between them. So the biggest thing we can do in terms of creating a little more gentle terrain here is just flattening those out. And same thing on the reverse side of any sort of hilly development here. We'll have to like dial back the mounds in between the houses to get that same sort of, you know, return to realism we're looking for. So now we can come through, instead of with that level terrain tool, we can come through with this, what is this one called? Soften terrain. So level terrain will let you use square, or I assume X on a Xbox, and you can set a height and then match it with the A button. And of course you can enhance the brush size and enhance and decrease the brush strength. So if you wanted to do like a big flat area, you can go like this and it'll go really aggro. But you can also use, the lower and just tap, you know? There's all kinds of options here. Like this is really good for kind of doing a street like this. Alright, I do think I want to get to 1800 for the sake of showing you all death care. If I look at the milestones here, yeah, okay, we'll get a cemetery, we'll get transport. So I can show you the basic principles of bus lines as well. So, I'm going to come in here to terrain view and look and say, okay, that looks like the spot to continue a road out from right there. Why don't we go ahead and do that? We got plenty of money right now. We're sitting pretty, budget in the green. I'll go ahead and turn my angle snap to back on. Just bring that out like that. And then again, just want to come through and check and say, okay, actually let's dial that back a little bit. Of course, on the PC, you can just pull the terrain view up while you're building. Isn't that nice for them? So I'm going to come through like this now, I think. Oop. Yeah, that ought to work. And then come through, and I'm always going to build with my dirt roads whenever I can. That's going to save me a lot of money. There we go. I'm going to do that. And then we'll look for that same width apart using those road guidelines. Here we go. We're continuing that parallel couplet down through here. And then I'll go ahead and do residential back through here, except we'll leave it off this weirdness that's happening at the end, I guess. And I'll put commercial out front like that on the strip, and I might even do commercial over here. Not as deep, but that'll face that park area then, which I like. Landfill is emptied out, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'm just going to bring in... Oh god, I can't afford it. Okay. I'm going to get a loan. As you can see, the second loan has got a way better weekly cost. It's way bigger. Yes, it takes longer to pay off, but it's much more affordable week to week. So I always go with that. I'm sort of just over there, so that should blow us out of the water. Yep. We can go ahead and pull the budget on that down now. And we'll just keep upgrading this couplet, right? And I'll upgrade the roads back through here. Again, building in dirt to save money, especially making sure we're happy with how roads look before committing to them. And then using the roads to really show which parts of the city have solidified. Which parts of the city have solidified, I should say. It's kind of how I like to do it. I'll go ahead and speed things up again. We'll just keep an eye on our numbers. Unemployment is 20%. Guess we need jobs, huh? Uh-oh, is that a water shortage? It is. So we need to bring the water budget up finally. That should do that. Ooh, we've got a fire way out here. So this could be a test for our fire guys, but I think... So if you look here, we can see the fire truck coming, and it's in fine position here to take care of this. Like it's nothing. Like it never happened. Seen a little bit of power shortage there. Makes sense. So what we could do is we will have to upgrade our power infrastructure soon here. So we got to be mindful of that. So then I want to look and we'll say, okay, where's our farming area here? Sort of said it was like right here. We can come through and designate that as farming industry area. So there's two ways to get creative with industrial space planning and zoning. The first one, obviously, is with zoning. You can come in and do into your industrial specializations. These come with the base game. You've got generic, which is going to be all the factories, like what you see right there right now. And then we have farm and forestry unlock with the early milestones, right? So this is what like the farm generic or farm industrial specialization is going to look like. I can probably also show you a bit of forestry here. So obviously you can get a little more creative with how you want to do these roads. I think this actually works okay as a sort of big grid here right now. I mean, the terrain's a little unique and challenging, but we can also fix that now if we really want to. So if we wanted to say, okay, I think this road should probably come connect up over here. Let's go ahead and pull that height, and now we can sort of create the obvious path where that would go. If I come through here and I do my industrial specialization on the forestry, obviously we'll want water for this stuff. I'll go ahead and back this back out just because can see when you're at this phase of the game, 1312 population, perfect number, you're going to have a lot of rapid back and forth with stuff. So let me just show you what this looks like here. We'll probably go ahead and need to bring a power line out here. Let's see if any of that even actually pops in here. I'm not sure it will. Meantime, we didn't actually add any parks, did we? That's my bad. So a couple of things. Maybe we'll do a big playground right there. I love that. And that also is a good opportunity to think about something I never did, which is a school. Very popular schools, as you might expect. We also have this community school here, which is a little bit bigger, a little bit fancier. Maybe we'll go with that, see how it looks. So that comes with the Green Cities DLC, interestingly enough. And in fact, I don't really like that one. Reminds me of charter schools, which I am not personally a fan of. But I will pretty much always put a fence in behind this to keep the kids on the playground safe. And there we go. Now we've got a school. Go ahead and check our budget, make sure it's all turned down. Parks, we should turn that down a little bit too, especially the nighttime budget. Don't really see a lot of park service operations that run at night. We can go ahead and turn our industry down too, although this is one I will crank back up once we actually have industry areas typically. So okay, we got some forestry out here. You can see kind of what that looks like. Pretty basic. There you go. Now you can see it a little bit better. So, I mean, there's more assets than that, obviously, but it's fine. What it is it's fine. That said, I don't think it's what I'm looking for. And what I will pretty much always look to do when I can is I prefer to do the industry area. So the farming industry area is one of the first ones you can get. It's really simple and effective. This building is really important because this is what all your city services are going to go to when they're trying to handle stuff at the farming industry area. Go ahead and stick it out here. That sort of makes some sense. And then we can come in and say, all right, yeah, let's do some crop fields. And then, of course, we'll need a silo as well. And this will be the very basics of an agricultural operation. Of course, we'll need water for all that. Even though you would likely see a farm have its own irrigation infrastructure, not on a municipal water supply, City Skylines is what it is. So here we are. I'm going to set this to empty right away in the hopes that it'll prevent a ton of imports from happening. Corn. Turn these both into corn. And then we can see farm has got like 100 workers already. A lot of that's going to be at these. 50 at the main building. And then we can check and see, okay, unemployment's 5%. If we want to keep expanding the farm, we can pull back this industrial zoning a little bit then. You can kind of balance your industrial demand around these different kinds of uses. The big thing is, anywhere you try to put jobs, you're going to need workers, right? That's what we know. Right here, what if I go ahead and try to smooth this all out a little bit? What I'm thinking is, maybe we just continue our grid here as best we can. Oh, and we're losing money like a mother right now. What's going on with that? So you can see our industry area, even though I took the budget all the way down, is going to be a huge investment. And that's going to be the upfront cost of the imports here, like I said. For some reason, even though I set this to empty, is going to import a ton of crops. Like if we look at these are all importing agricultural products from other cities. Why? I don't know. You can't turn this off in the base game. It's probably the most unfortunate aspect of an otherwise stellar Industries DLC. It's just that there's no way to do that. Anytime you start an industrial area, as soon as you place down the storage, you have to be prepared to take a huge budget hit, unfortunately. Because even if you have production roaring already, unless you time it perfectly, I guess, this is just going to happen. So we'll see if hopefully it'll stop importing here soon. We'll see if the budget rebounds as a factor of that. In the meantime, I will go ahead, I guess, and zone all of this. All of this. Actually, I guess not those right there. Sorry to that guy that just moved in. And just to rebalance the block, we'll do that. Okay, so budget's back in the green, thank God. We stopped importing. For some reason, that completely filled up, even though it was only on balanced. I just don't get it, you know? Whatever. Okay, not a big deal. Everything's fine now. We will have money again shortly. Maybe we'll even start making it. Because now if we look at our income expenses again, look at that. Industry is down to 179 all of a sudden. So if you're going to open up the Industries DLC this early in a build, be prepared. Please be prepared. Save up a ton of money. Be ready for that huge import boom as soon as you put storage down. Go ahead and check what our employment is like. It's pretty high. Not from a... We have like 100 and almost 200 jobs open. So I'm going to leave that to sort of settle itself out, hopefully. And let's take a look at the other policies we've unlocked. So we can do pet ban. I don't know why you would ever do this, unless you're a horrible monster. Smoking ban, which is good, but obviously comes at the cost of happiness. Parks and Recreation is great if you want a really nice. This is really expensive to put on an entire city if you're not careful. Again, it's like the smoke detectors. At this scale, it might not be as noticeable. I think we have only 1 or 2 parks. But if you're going to build a very park-heavy city, it's going to make a big difference. Schools out. So this is one where if you are focused on industrial city, you should put this on early. You can also strategically target this by neighborhoods. I've done it in the past. So like say I knew like this neighborhood right here, right? It's all going to be for these industrial yards. So I could put schools out on this to ensure that we have a workforce that doesn't get too overeducated for what these facilities are. Otherwise, eventually you will have to pivot your industrial output, you know, either to the Industries DLC, like you can see this has some educated spots available, even the fields do, but unless you want to end up pivoting to offices down the line, you got to be careful with that and be cognizant, I guess is what I should say. Continue to grid out through here. There we go. Just come in with some nice clean curves through there. And I think we're developing like a really interesting look to the city here, which I'm really excited about. It's not just the same basic boring grid through the whole thing. This could end up being a traffic nightmare later on, if we're being honest, this whole situation right here. But we will cross that bridge if and when we come to it, I think. And that'll just have a weird little jog to it. In fact, we could even get the fix on this now if we wanted to by doing... So we have... That road's perfectly straight now. Hypothetically, if we bring that down to there, we can actually get the nice clean grid we were looking for all through there, and I'm so excited about that. Okay, messed up that block just a little bit, but that's to be expected. A couple of little corner shops maybe here and there. Maybe some more stuff facing the park right here. And there's that industrial demand. So we can look at some other things to do with the farm. Hopefully this is exporting. And in fact, I may go ahead and bump the budget on that up now, because that had 3 trucks, right? So if we take it up to 75, what does that do? 7 trucks. And where are they going to go? They're going to export all that agricultural product. So that's a good idea right now, because hopefully that should boost our income from that. Because right now it's at 0. We can go ahead and put some more commercial in over here. Maybe like out to here. Trying to keep the commercial evenly distributed, obviously, so folks can get to it. Here we go. That should work. So kind of creating definitely a centralized park there. So again, extremely high unemployment. So we can go ahead, throw down some farms. And those will just feed directly into here as well. So that's how all the industry areas work. You'll start with these resource generation. You'll need to go into the sort of raw resource generation, into raw resource storage. Then you can process that into a second level. And then beyond that, the second levels and the first level products can be turned into typically the third level unique products. I like having the farm kind of on the edge of town whenever I can. And then the other big piece of it being close to the industrial area, because some of the farming stuff will be good to have. Like the flour mills, it's good to have those near your industrial area. I'm getting very close to that next milestone I was thinking about here. And check the terrain out here. A little bit rough. What if we just pull this height through here? You can see, again, this is the beauty of what happens when you unlock the landscaping tools. It just opens up a whole nother dimension of the game. So now we can potentially bring a road around there. And obviously we got water problems, and it's just a budget issue. So we can fix that very easily. So that's just like power. When you see, here, I'll show you. When you see that water issue pop up and it's like, well, the pipes are there. Look, see, this pipe is not lit up. Sewage is green, but the blue, the water is not. These pipes are all at sort of the far-flung edges, and so just like, you know, we were worried about our water pump having power because it's so far from the coal, we have to be worried about these buildings getting proper water. Now I did up the budget, and it'll immediately jump into the green there. Sometimes it takes a second. Just advance the speed if you're worried about it. Then you can kick it down to 1x speed again. Continue to see very high unemployment as things continue to evolve. Just keep building out the apple orchard here. If you're new, I would definitely recommend picking one kind of industry area to build out here and sticking with it. Oh, there we go. Boomtown. Boomtown. Okay, so there's a lot to unlock here. Obviously, we're going to get transport for the first time, including airport areas. We'll get another square to play with. The bus is going to be unlocked. Tram, taxi, tours, and the post office. Some new policies, ones I actually like and I use on pretty much every city you're in here. A lot of new roads again. And then some key healthcare stuff. The cemetery, elder care, and child care center. Those are all going to be related to life and death. And then obviously a bunch of transport stuff, some new schools and things. So as always, we hit a milestone. I'll pause it real quick. And let's take a look at a couple of things. Because the first thing, this is really the last big milestone where we need to immediately think about responding to a need that is just unlocked, and that is death care. So the cemeteries work similarly to the dumps in a way, in that they fill up and you cannot move them again until you've completely emptied them out. So that's just something to be cognizant of, that when you have a cemetery, it is going to need to be emptied before it can be filled again. So I'm going to go ahead and stick it out here. It's not the most ideal location, but you know, I think it's going to work fine. The cemetery here will terraform, so you know, it's kind of up to you. Like, do you want to like maybe pull a little bit of this back so that wall doesn't look quite so weird? Do you want to create a flat pad from the outset? Would you rather, like, you know, maybe we could come in up here and say, Okay, actually, let's do a road here. And then we can have this nice quiet cemetery in like a really special spot back here, right? So there's that, right? Okay, so we've got the cemetery, and this will be pinged to our healthcare budget, so this will only have 3 hearses right now. Death care is one of the most broken mechanics in the base game on console or vanilla. If you've ever played and you've had what's known as a death wave, that's when like a huge portion of your city dies off all at once. There's a couple of reasons that happens. First and foremost, just being that the game is designed that way and it's unfortunate. And there are mods to fix it if you're playing on PC, I believe. But if you're stuck on console like me, the best things you can do are, one, to overinvest in death care coverage. So the cemeteries can be a little cumbersome. Once you get to the crematorium, putting those all over the place is really good. I'll show you where that is. So this is you have to get to 12,000 first, so it's a big ask, but this is going to work like recycling centers do for garbage. It'll have a processing capacity. It'll send trucks out, process them there, and you can move it at will, unlike the cemetery, crucially. So you can see, there goes our first hearse. We can go ahead and follow this guy. So as soon as it opens up death care, people will start dying. It's the same thing as soon as garbage opens up, people will start generating waste. As soon as fire and police open up, things will start catching on fire and crime will start being reported. When you hit those milestones early on, you need to respond to those needs imminently. The sooner you do it, the better, because if you have infrastructure in place already, instead of responding to the needs you see, like if you wait until you see fire icons or crime icons or death icons, you're already going to be starting from the back foot. So always try to get that stuff out of the way early on. So the other thing we can do, we can come in through here and say, okay, maybe a post office would be nice, right? A lot of towns have that. Maybe we stick it like right here. This block with the elementary school. I like to put it on the corner facing that way, because obviously the entrance kind of opens up really nicely right there like that. And we'll go ahead and look at the budget for that, right? Again, something else with budget to it. And we'll turn that all the way down. And so that's really just going to have an area of effect that'll increase land value. See, here goes one of our postal vans. And actually, I think if we watch, we can see... So it's going to start turning houses green as it goes here. And that's good news for those communities. It's one of the, you need a complex system of things here to make land value worthwhile. So just be cognizant of the fact, you can see there goes another van, it's lighting stuff up green. The immediate area of effect of this green ring, that's where you're really going to see the payoff. But these trucks will travel outside that area of effect. So that's really important with all of your services to be cognizant of. Is that yes, the green ring is important. You can make it bigger by increasing the budget, and that'll boost the land value in the area impacted by the service more so. But all of the service vehicles are not restricted to that green area. And in fact, without mods, many of them will travel ridiculous distances across the map, especially if you have like a big, wide-ranging, expansive city. So it's just always good to think about that's why traffic is so important in this game. Speaking of which, let me check it out. We're at 94%. It's light green, maybe a little bit orangey red right here. We would expect that in industrial spots. And you can see there's not a backup, so it's not actually a problem. It's just a high traffic intersection. And you need those. They're going to exist in your city. You can't avoid them. So 94% is really good. Go ahead and historicize this stuff down here. Nice thing about the Boreal map is you're not going to see dirt rings under your trees either. If you've ever had that on the temporal or tropical maps and you find it frustrating from a detailing perspective, just come play Boreal and that'll clear it right up. There we go, a couple of trees there. Could also, something I really like to do is I'll do intense detailing in the median of my two-way couplet here, so we can come through and just put a tree every couple, and then I'll do something like, say we want this farm fence here, and then we can come through like this and really not only create like a nice look to it, but this will also prevent me from ever accidentally zoning this median. Now that this fencing is here, it can't be zoned. So that's a nice way to add a little bit of detail. You can see I just love how that looks. It's really simple, but it adds a lot to, you know, make this feel like more of a street that I really built, as opposed to just, okay, I got the basic grid down, you know. Last thing I want to cover is transport. I'm going to look for a good spot. I think I'll do my bus station right here. So this is a bus depot. And that will open up the ability to start doing transit lines, which is huge. So I want to look for a couple of spots where these make sense. We'll do one down Main Street, which is highly logical. In fact, why don't we do it like this? So I'm just going to double check where my lines are now, right? Or my stops, I should say. Make sure they sort of make sense. So I might back this one up a little bit. And then maybe even bring this one to like right there. And then I would do this one over here. Oops, and just get rid of that. There we go. Okay. A couple of other spots where I think it would make sense to have bus lines. So I would say the big thing is I always want to look for like where's my line going to turn around, right? Like it's very easy on the couplet, of course. Like here, I might just create a little bus turnaround. And we'll say, okay, it can start there. It'll come down to here. Stop right by the park, or maybe over here, because that's going to give us transfer opportunities with the Main Street line, right? And then we'll just have it come out past the depot there. It'll loop back around. I'm always looking to loop my lines back around. That way things stay nice and clean. We'll have it stop back at there and then complete the line up here. Obviously you can see that is a little bit tricky there, so all I'm going to do is just upgrade this. And that should make it so our line can go through there now. Just to prove it, we'll do that, and we'll do that. Okay. And in fact, I may even move this down one. There we go. Okay. So that's been the basic principle of all my bus lines, is I am going to look to mirror service on both sides of the street. I'm going to look to create turnarounds if they don't exist yet. This early in the game, it's quite simple to do just by stubbing things out. So then we can come up through here and say, okay, these people are excited now because, you know, the development is coming up here and it's bringing with it a new bus stop. And so that's going to work just fine like that. If you're really sensitive about it, you could say, okay, maybe these people would want some fences then, since now they're going to have their neighbors waiting for the bus right next door. And then we'll just smooth out our terrain just a little bit there. Oh my god, what is the problem? Okay, we're just going to check that real quick. So it's a simple matter of electricity availability. This happens. I think... normally I would really like to buy... Oh, and we're kind of strapped for loans. Oh, this is bad. Okay. So we'll go ahead and bump that up to 101, and we'll do this up to 111, and we'll see if that is enough. Go to 110 and 120. And there we go. That solved water to the... Yep. Okay. So we're just barely within range there now. We're seeing one of the first famous problems you'll have here is not enough educated jobs. So you'll see this happen when your low density commercial starts to level up. So you can see this building is level 2, and all of a sudden it says not enough educated workers. There's a couple of things you can do. Obviously, we can continue to expand our education capacity as it is quite low. We have one elementary school that is only doing about half of the city's needs, and we have no high school right now. So this is where we can come in and say, let's start to boost this education budget back up. Maybe not nighttime. Again, you can play for that realism if you want to. It also depends on if you're playing day-night cycle. So we'll do that, and we'll see that should just speed things up enough until we see it, boom, jump way up. So that's even too much, to be honest. I can scale that back just a little bit again. We'll save some money. Still have plenty of room to start seeing our citizens get educated. And then the other thing you could do at this point potentially would be a library. So if you didn't want to put down a high school yet because you're not ready, you can do the library. And there's also this great historical library in the Content Creator Pack, which is really nice. It's really compact. It fits pretty much anywhere, especially relative to the normal public library, which is this massive, like clear, like downtown kind of asset. So these are really nice, and the libraries I think see higher utilization if you have less educational opportunities in the city. But for now, we will probably see turnover. So the big thing I would say is just don't fall in love with any of your low density commercial buildings early on. Some of them might be really nice, you might really love them, but there probably will be turnover on your main commercial strip. So let's just go ahead and see what our bus lines are doing. So not bad here, line 1 and line 2. And we could probably even take both of these down to 2 or even 1 bus if we really wanted to. I think I'll leave 2 on Main Street and I'll put 1 here. The city is still really small to justify any kind of really big transit operation. You know, this is practically walkable at this point from anywhere to anywhere. Where transport starts to become really important is as you continue to expand, obviously. I will just go ahead and do our funding for our industry area up to 100, just to see if that helps our budget, because I'm hoping that'll increase our exports here. Yeah, so that just quadrupled the number of freight trucks available at the small grain silo. I think we should see a big return on that investment. Let's go ahead. I'll show you a couple of other things you can do here. It's always a good idea to come in here and check your intersections. So I don't know mechanically. I've always wondered if this has an effect on land values. I think I just hear stuff ding up a lot when I do this, and so it's created an association in my head. The real utility in the vanilla game to this level of traffic management is you can prioritize certain movements and certain roads in ways that are really important ultimately. So like here, this couplet, I can come through here and say, this couplet never stops. The roads pulling onto it are going to stop. You know, maybe in the middle here, I would ask people to at least yield. But for the most part, what we're looking at is we want to have straight throughways there. And then the same thing here. So people want to get back up into these neighborhoods quickly. They don't necessarily need to get onto their house road quite as quickly then. But still, I'll do like a 4-way stop there so you can come through a couple of blocks. I think this is really common. You see this all the time. But then obviously at the end, we'll have that. So just creating traffic patterns here, like right now. So here, you coming down here, you know, these blocks are twice as wide as they are long. So you don't have to stop at every single one, right? Especially because if you're coming off of here, you want to get down to Main Street probably, the most efficient route through the community. So again, we'll just pull some of this stuff. In fact, here, like by the school, by the post office, yeah, you would probably see a 4-way stop, right? But we're trying to make Main Street the most efficient way to get over to the other part of town here. If you're, especially if you're these commercial businesses or trucks or anything like that. So that's really the objective of any of the traffic management here. And then on this side, I'll leave most of this alone. I think right there we would see some stop signs, maybe right there. And I mean, you can think about like, where would you expect a stop sign to be? Where would it be beneficial to have one as a driver at an intersection you might not be familiar with or certain about? And where also crucially, think about it from a pedestrian's perspective. It's just all I would ask of you. These will have an effect on transit routes that run on the streets though too. So bus, and if you have your tram on the road, just be mindful of that it will add time, especially at turnarounds like this. Like I'm a little nervous about this because right now this bus comes, it stops right here, so that's one stop there, and then it's got to do this big block, so it's got to stop there, it's got to stop there, and it's got to stop there before it comes back. So that's not ideal, to say the least. But it just kind of makes the most sense. So what we might do there is just say, okay, let's put the bus stop. Oh, we could do it here. That's interesting. I actually like that a lot because then we can move this stop to there. And that creates a really nice transfer opportunity for people. In addition to, I think, simplifying this a little bit, which is nice. So there we go. That should help with traffic. But I'm pretty happy with where I'm at now. I think that this is the start of something really promising. Hopefully, if you're interested in the Blackwoods map in the vanilla base game, you feel the same way about what I've accomplished here. I think I just really want to stress that the key to City Skylines is balancing the game's mechanical necessities with your own aesthetic interests. If you want to create a super blocked out city because that's what's satisfying to you, do it. If you'd rather read the terrain a little more, do it. I hope you feel that you now have a really strong sense of the starting square on the Blackwoods map and how to get up to the Boomtown Milestone, which by that point you'll have the majority of your essential city services, hopefully. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm going to close this out with some cinematics so you can see what got done today. And please check back for more of the series. If you're curious about any maps in particular that you'd like to see me do one of these videos on, shout it out in the comments. I'll probably be working through them mostly in order that they appear by release, because I assume more people will have the base games and some of the earlier DLCs. But if there is anything in particular you'd like to see me tackle because you're curious about the map or you're always curious about how to approach it or anything like that, feel free to sound off, let me know. Thanks so much for tuning in, and yeah.